everyone. Great to see you all. Great program. Thank you to Sandra and GBBC for putting it together and for having us. And welcome to you, Acting Comptroller Rodney E. I'd like to have you just say a few moments of introduction, and then we'll talk.
Great. Well, first of all, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you, GBBC, for the wonderful invitation to join you all today and amplify a number of activities that I care about deeply. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank Joanne Barefoot. Joanne, it's great to see you again. We haven't visited since our last podcast. But you all, as I sit down with you all today, I just want you to know that it is, for me, a complete honor to join this global gathering of innovators and policy thinkers. As comptroller of the currency, I believe blockchain is more than a breakthrough technology. It, ladies and gentlemen, is indeed and undeniably a global catalyst. It challenges all of us to rethink how we regulate across borders, how we promote financial inclusion in both developed and emerging markets, and how we build bridges between traditional finance and the digital asset economy. Our shared responsibility is to embrace innovation while safeguarding trust, stability, and access across the global financial system. And it's through that lens, you all, that I'm happy to join you and discuss a lot of these other issues a little more deeply.
Thank you. We're at such a momentous time. The new administration has come into office and really immediately begun trying to open the doors to more activity in digital assets and blockchain and crypto. And as has been discussed today, the stablecoin legislation seems poised to pass. And so when you came into office, you immediately signaled that you would like to see expanded activity in this space among banks. So talk to us about what you're doing, what you're planning to do.
Yes, when I took the oath of office on you all on February the 10th, I came in as acting comptroller with the knowledge and the mindset that if our American banking system is going to remain competitive, it is going to be incumbent that there is a regulatory framework that fosters innovation and that allows our consumers and businesses who want to engage more fully in digital assets. It's incumbent upon us to make sure that they have that regulatory framework. So I have worked with the men and women of our agency to remove a lot of the old barriers that existed between novel activities and traditional bank activities. We focus you all on making sure that those some 50 million households who are using digital platforms every day, how do we empower more of that while again removing some of the regulatory barriers? One such thing that we've done, you all, is we issued a note to all of our regulated entities through an interpretive letter. It basically said that there would no longer be a line of demarcation between traditional and novel bank activities. Before interpretive letter 1183 was released, all of our American banks could not really have the clarity that was necessary. They had to come to our agency to ask for a no objection, as opposed to being able to just go through appropriate risk management and risk mitigation protocols. So Joanne, we issued once that interpretive letter, and then just recently we issued another interpretive letter saying that it's all right to engage in cryptocurrency as custodians. Oh, thank you. I see a few hands applauding there. That's quite all right. We love that. But by way of engaging in custodial opportunities, also the ability to embrace digital ledger technologies. So all of these, you all, was meant to really convey that we are moving forward. And I want you all to know that this is not meant to be a once and done. You're going to continue to see us moving forward with more interpretive letters and rulemakings. But the main net message for you is you all can embrace these tools provided you're looking at a risk management lens. I didn't say risk avoidance, but looking at it through the parameters of risk management and risk mitigation. And I think that for some of the newer activities, I just want you to recognize conventional banking controls can in fact be reframed to address the nuances of crypto assets. That means that you can still be effective at managing risk associated with these tools, but just using it by looking at things like BSA and AML and KYC, the things that you've been doing all along.
So this is going to be very new for banks. There's a learning curve to climb here, and I think it's really going to be very, very significant. It ties into your theme on financial inclusion. You've been a champion of financial inclusion for the whole time I've known you, since you were at the NCUA. Talk to us about how you see the impact for financial inclusion.
That's a really good question, Joanne, and you're right. I've been advocating and a champion for financial inclusion for quite some time. And also, Joanne would say this more than others, that I also have been a champion for innovation. I've embraced technology and digital platforms, and if there's anything I would say, if innovation is the engine of growth, then financial inclusion is the moral and economic compass. I undeniably believe that financial inclusion is the global civil rights issue of our time. When I look at particularly what's taking place here in the United States, there are still 40% of our American households unable to obtain $400 in an emergency. We still lamentably have 70 million households of what we would call credit invisible or unscorable. How do we bring these individuals into the mainstream so they can have access to full-on tools, so they can get the loans necessary to have cars to go to and from work? How do we, more importantly, provide them with the resources necessary to have credit scores to get jobs? There are many employers out there who are looking at scoring. What do we do to address that? Well, we do it through a number of ways, and I think digital platforms is one of the ways that we can reach many of the underserved communities. Also, we at the OCC have a project called REACH. It is a public partnership with the banks and community groups, and REACH stands for the Round Table for Economic Access and Change. It's bringing together stakeholders to help us look at what have been the barriers, what are some of the solutions. One solution, you all, is when I talk about the credit unscorable, well, what we've done through Project REACH, through working with banks and community groups such as Operation Hope and others, we've learned that cash flow lending or cash flow underwriting can be a good predictor of the ability to repay. So that's one such thing that we're seeing manifest itself. So it's through entities such as Project REACH. It's through using a lot of those listening sessions that we've had. I think it's important. One of the things I would say about REACH when I talk about its impact, not only has it helped us look more at cash flow lending, and some of the banks that are a part of the partnership are engaged, it's developing around 4 different work streams. REACH is designed to help promote inclusion around home ownership. Home ownership, you all, tends to be the fundamental building block of asset building and wealth accumulation in underserved communities. Another work stream is small business lending, Joanne, is how do we help those entrepreneurs have access to small dollar loans? How do we help them have access to capital to create Main Street businesses? Another work stream, which you've heard me discuss, is financial technology, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but how do we pave the way for banks to work together with fintechs? And another work stream, which I think is something that not just unique to the United States, but I think globally, if you all are from across the globe, and that is we have a work stream around rural communities, communities that perhaps have not had a lot of bricks and mortar by way of branches, but yet they still have economic needs. So we're going to be looking at how do we bring a lot of these technological advances into rural communities. So those 4 work streams have been a part of our financial inclusion efforts. And I think at the end of the day, it's just imperative that we all look for what we can do as regulators to empower and enable our federal banks and trust savings organizations to have these tools necessary to have a fair, safe, and robust banking system.
One of the themes I have heard a little bit about through the day today is the role for small institutions, community banks and credit unions. You have a kind of a unique background, I think. You have a lot of experience with large banks, but you were the chairman of the NCUA, which most credit unions are small.
They are.
And now you're overseeing the national banks, which include all the biggest banks, but also 1,000 or so very small banks. So how do you see the future in relation to crypto and blockchain? for the smaller institutions, and including how are you looking at the issue of bank fintech partnerships, which has been such a robust and dynamic area, one that's, I know, raised regulatory concerns, but also seems to me at least to be critical to the future of small banks being able to compete.
Good question there, Joanne. And I would say, as Joanne referenced, I've been unique in that I was able to, at one point in my career, oversee America's credit union system at the National Credit Union Administration, and to today, as Acting Comptroller, to oversee the federal banking system. So it's given me a unique perspective on how technology can be that equalizer and democratizer in bringing underserved communities up to the mainstream. With that being said, the community banks play a pivotal role. Our small institutions need to have access to these tools, which is why I'm trying to remove the regulatory impediments. We at the OCC have an Office of Financial Technology where they have been reaching out with office hours and things of that nature to provide opportunities for the banks and the fintech partners to hear directly from the regulator ourselves. What are some of the things that they can do to move forward? I think that with the small community banks, I think it's a matter of them hearing that the regulator is not going to stifle their innovative activities, but we're going to move them forward. And I know it's easier said than done. I still think that there is a lot of concern that really my regulator is telling me to embrace technology. My regulator is telling me it's all right to engage in third-party relationships. And yes, you all, the regulator is encouraging these opportunities because it, one, allows the banking system to remain competitive. And again, the community banks, unlike some of the larger firms that I may have been able to work with or a lot of the larger Wall Street entities, a lot of the small banks do not have the balance sheets to go out and buy a solution. They will really need to use their opportunity for leveraging, for partnership formation to serve their members or to serve their clients. So I want to pave that way forward for them as a 21st century regulator. With that being said, we're happy to see progress. We at the OCC recently approved a small traditional bank and its integration with the fintech to create a digital bank that's going to be focused exclusively on small business lending. So that is something that we were able to propel moving forward. Also at the OCC, we just put forward a request for information around asking the community banks to identify what are some of the needs that they are seeing, needs such as having a strong core provider, needs such as having greater regulatory clarity from us and the other regulators in this city of Washington. So we're going to look forward to gaining insight from that request for information to see what are some of the other things that we're going to need to do. I think one of the things that I want folks to recognize is talk to your regulator. Don't wait until it's time for your yearly or I don't know, every 18th month examination, but if you have an idea, share it with them such that your examiner is not surprised. And I know many of you often look to your examiner as much as you look forward to getting root canal. Well, that shouldn't be the case. It should be that they want to partner with you, and I know I've created a framework where it's all about partnership. And Joanne, if I could close by just saying this, if I don't pave the way for our community banks to use these technologies with, again, 50 million, some individuals using digital assets. If I don't give our banks that regulatory clarity, well, do we even have a banking system left to regulate? It is so critically important that the tools are readily available, provided, and this is the role that the banks will play, provided that you're looking at risk management, risk mitigation. As you bring on your fintech partners, are you asking those thought-probing questions around how are they having a fidelity to consumer protection, consumer compliance? How are they storing data? How are they looking at the obligations around Bank Secrecy Act and AML, anti-money laundering? So it's important that you look at all of those activities as you embrace today's emerging technology. So yes, there's a wonderful opportunity out there for the future, but I do want you all to be mindful of the things that it takes to have a safe, sound, and fair banking system.
I have worked with community banks myself for decades, and I traditionally was an optimist about their future. But my own view is I think their future hangs in the balance on whether they're going to be able to work with technology providers that can keep them competitive. So I think that's just critical.
It really is a concern, again, and that's why, again, convening such as this, the partnership piece, sharing ideas and exchanges, and you're right, it's going to be so important that they have those tools and technology. But I think if they can have the tools, it's going to give them greater operational efficiency. I think it's also going to allow them to go deeper with the customers and not just meeting a customer's demand, but anticipating that customer's needs. And I think that's some of the things they can do with the technology. But you're right. I think it's going to really hang in the balance of the adoption of these tools, those tools being made readily available, affordably. And again, I think I'm thinking with more partnership activities and more things coming from the regulatory sphere here in Washington, I'm hoping that we can keep a future bright, because like you, I tend to be very glass half full.
So let's go a little bit deeper on this question of how you are enabling and even encouraging banks to get into this space.
Encouraging banks to get into this space by a number of the things that we're doing. Again, I've mentioned the letters, and we're seeing a number of folks wanting to come in with new charters. They're wanting to expand their charters to have digital asset only types of banks. Another piece, that we're seeing, as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned, the OCC was the first federal regulator to have an Office of Technology and Innovation. So we're going to be having opportunities for office hours. Many of our regulated entities, Joanne, have taken advantage of that. You're going to see us, I mentioned that traditional bank and the whole piece of having the tech-savvy company come in, and now we have a digital small business lender. I think the more the industry sees of these demonstrable activities, the more they realize this is not just the acting comptroller giving them platitudes, but they're seeing demonstrable action. So I think the fact that between the request for information, the recent announcements that we've made, you're going to continue to see a few other activities coming from the agency. And I just want you to be on the lookout. This is a bright day. And I know, Joanne, that prior to the two of us getting on the stage, they've heard from members of Congress regarding stable coins and some of those activities. Well, we, ever since Abraham Lincoln created the OCC 162 years ago, with that, there was the National Currency Act. Well, I certainly am excited about the role that the OCC will play with today's 21st century currency, and that being stable coins. So you're going to see a regulatory regime coming after Congress has done all of the work that they need. I look forward to working with my colleagues to have regulations that, again, move the industry forward by adopting these new payment systems. And again, it's all about risk management, risk mitigation, and we're thrilled.
On the office hours, am I right that those are available not just to national banks, but to companies here who might want to be working with banks?
That's a really good clarifying question. Yes, we certainly want to hear not just from the banks and the trust companies, but we want to hear from the fintechs as well. And again, for you all as fintechs, it lets you really hear from us what's on our mind, and it does open the door for other things that we will be doing. I do look forward to us doing a regulatory sandbox and a tech sprint and working diligently with our Office of Technology and Innovation. So yes, it is for you all to make yourself known to them. I want you to do that. And again, if anything, what it does is it allows you to hear what's on our mind as regulators. You heard me rattle off the list earlier. If you're going to have a solution, well, then you're going to talk about your data privacy. What are you doing around consumer protection? Letting us work through some of that with you early on before you go to market, as opposed to going to market and then having what I would call a hiccup that maybe results in an enforcement action or something of that nature. It's nice to have the ability to hear from the regulator directly. And Joanne, recognizing that this is a global group that we have here, I want you all to know, if possible, that when we talk about some of the things that we're doing at the OCC, we certainly are not acting unilaterally. I am very proud of the fact that given my role and our agency's role, we're doing a lot of this globally, and I know GBBC appreciates that I get to meet with the folks from BIS in London. Joanne, I know you've introduced me to a lot of your friends and colleagues from the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. They've been pioneers when it comes to things such as tech sprints and regulatory sandboxes. So we at the OCC, we're on a number of working groups with these individuals, and I know that GBBC works a lot with these individuals as well, the Singapore Monetary Authority. So we believe that in order of working effectively and also in terms of having the best-in-class experience, it's going to be incumbent upon us to hear from other thought leaders around the globe. And I thought that being here at this global convening, and also we've worked a lot with folks from Japan as well. So I want you to know that this, if there's an area that requires coordination among all of our countries, and that is this, the digital asset piece, the stable coins, BSA, I'm so excited about the future because it gives us opportunities to hear from folks across the pond and beyond.
So we can't have a panel anymore without talking about AI. AI is changing everything. Did I tell you that I used generative AI to make a movie the other day?
No.
So
I thought that was Angelina Jolie. That was you? Oh my goodness.
So I am a technophile, but not, my tech skills are modest, let's put it that way. But I'll just tell a quick story. I watched the movie Flow, which is an Academy Award-winning movie about an animated cat. And at the end of it, I thought, what the heck, I wonder if I could make a movie. So I went over to my computer and I opened Sora in my ChatGPT, and I put in a picture of my visiting cat, which is a whole nother story. It's my son's cat that I've had for way too long. And I didn't have any tutorial, I didn't have anything. I just thought, what the heck, I'm gonna give it some prompts and change the background and ask it to have the cat do some stuff. And like 5 minutes later, I had a little movie. And if I wanted to, I could change her into a dog or a purple cat or, whatever I would want to do. Point being, this is transformative tech, it's general tech, it's seeping into everything, everywhere. So how is the OCC thinking about AI, both for your own use and for the industry?
That's a really good question and very insightful. We are thinking about it first and foremost, how do we use it? So we, through our Office of Financial Technology and Innovation, we're already exploring use cases and opportunities for it to help us with our regulatory and supervisory activities. We've had training sessions. We have a number of folks who are testing even things such as agentic AI, looking at quantum. So these are things, you all, that as we look at these emerging technologies, you've heard me rattle off the list as to why the banks, community banks and large banks alike, must embrace technology of the future, where you all, the regulators, need to do so as well. So we are not only experimenting with it, but we're using it very strategically. We also, you all are doing more reg tech and soup tech. Those of you who are in the room who are bankers, I'm sure you would love to simplify the BSA and AML types of activities. Well, we're looking for ways that we can do that through machine learning and things of that nature. I think that the main thing for you all to recognize is that the fintechs of the world are not waiting for the regulators to keep up or catch up. So that means that it's an iterative, ongoing process. But the main thing, the takeaway, is that we are experimenting and trying to stay as au courant as we can to make sure that we can be good 21st century forward-thinking regulators. But the main thing is we're testing it. I'm using it as well, maybe not as creatively as you in creating a movie, but it does work very well, and I needn't tell you that. I'm sure many of you are actively engaged as well. But the main thing, it's continuing to learn and also continuing to make sure that our employees are getting ongoing iterative training on this. it's so important that we make sure that we're honing our skills to stay abreast of today's emerging technologies, and I think we're proving that.
Thank you so much. Everyone, please join me in thanking Acting Comptroller Rodney Hood.
Thank you all. Thank you, Joanne.